All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to this exam prep explainer. Today, our sole mission is to make sure you absolutely nail the Nutanix Flow Network Security, or FNS, policy model for your NCP-MCI 7.5 certification. Look, if you're an infrastructure admin gearing up for this test, Section 10.3 is a massive scoring opportunity, but you really have to know your stuff. We're going to break down the category-based policy language, those tricky default postures, and the exact enforcement modes they're going to test you on.
Here is our game plan for today. We'll start with why FNS actually matters, then dissect the category-based policy language. After that, we'll do a walkthrough of the enforcement modes, point out some really common exam traps to watch out for, and finally wrap up with a cheat sheet of the key facts you just have to memorize.
Okay, Section 1, Why FNS Matters. Let's set the stage.
So to really understand this stuff, you have to understand the paradigm shift behind it. FNS is built completely around the concept of zero trust. You've probably heard the buzzword, but in practice, zero trust means we literally never automatically trust anything, period. Not inside the perimeter, not outside the perimeter. We verify anything and everything trying to connect. Basically, you have to operate under the assumption that the perimeter has already been breached, which means we have to lock down internal traffic just as hard as external traffic.
And this comparison perfectly captures why this is such a big deal. We are moving away from that old-school, legacy network-centric security, the stuff that relies entirely on IPs and VLANs where you have to put in a ticket with the network team for every tiny change. Instead, FNS gives us workload-centric security. It's category-based, and the best part, the virtualization team actually controls it. You're securing the traffic to and from the virtual machines themselves, completely eliminating those traditional network bottlenecks. It is a huge speed boost for deployments.
Let's move right along to Section 2, Category-Based Policy Language. Let's look at the building blocks.
Nutanix uses its own specific vocabulary here, and for the exam, you need to know these terms inside and out. First up is the entity. This is just an object, usually a VM, that's acting as your source, your destination, or the secured entity right in the middle. Next, we have categories. Honestly, these are the lifeblood of FNS. Just think of them as key value tags used to group your entities, like tagging a VM with an app type, a tier, or a location. And finally, the category set. This is simply a collection of those categories evaluated together using an AND operation. So a VM has to have all the tags in the set to be included.
Now, here is the real game changer. Listen closely. Because policies target these categories instead of hard-coded IP addresses, your security is infinitely scalable. It doesn't matter if you spin up 2 VMs or 2,000 VMs in a specific category. That VM's traffic is secured automatically. Even if it changes its IP, even if it migrates to a totally different network on your AHV cluster, the security policy just follows it. No manual updates required.
All right, Section 3. Let's get into the mechanics with an enforcement modes walkthrough.
Every FNS policy operates in one of two modes, monitor mode or enforce mode. Monitor mode is exactly what it sounds like. It allows all traffic to flow smoothly, but it acts like a surveillance camera. It visualizes what flows would be allowed and what flows would be disallowed based on your rules, without actually breaking any connections. Enforce mode, on the flip side, takes action. It actively blocks any traffic that isn't explicitly allowed. And here's a critical fact for the exam. You can toggle a policy between monitor and enforce at any time, as many times as you want.
Now, take a look at how Prism Central actually visualizes this for you when you're in monitor mode. It's incredibly intuitive. See the colored lines connecting the categories? The solid blue lines are your allowed flows. The orange lines represent discovered network flows, basically traffic happening right now that you haven't written a rule for yet. And the red lines? Those are disallowed flows. If you were to flip the switch to enforce mode right now, those red lines are exactly what would get blocked. It gives you absolute confidence before you make anything live.
But before you do flip that switch, we need to talk about defaults, because they will absolutely test you on this. For an application security policy, the default inbound setting is strictly an allowed list only. This is that least privilege model in action. By default, it denies everything coming in, and you have to explicitly say what is allowed. Outbound traffic, however, is the exact opposite. The default outbound setting is Allow All, meaning the application is free to send traffic outward unless you go in and specifically restrict it.
So what does this look like in a real-world workflow? Well, let's say you have a new app. Step 1, you set the policy to monitor mode. This lets you discover all the traffic trying to reach those secured entities without accidentally breaking the app. Step 2, you review that traffic and you update your policy by adding the valid sources to your allowed list. Step 3, once everything looks good, you flip the switch to enforce mode. The valid traffic keeps flowing seamlessly and everything else is blocked. Easy.
Let's look at another concrete example, an isolation policy. This uses the exact same category-based language, but instead of protecting an app, its job is to draw a hard line in the sand between two categories. The classic example is keeping your dev VMs from talking to your prod VMs. You assign the dev tag over here, the prod tag over there, and isolate them. And yeah, you can still test this in monitor mode first to see if some rogue dev server is trying to ping prod before you drop the hammer and enforce it.
Okay, moving to section 4, common exam traps. Put your thinking caps on, because this is the danger zone.
Let's do a quick pop quiz right now to see if you're tracking. Imagine you're taking the exam and you get this scenario. You just created a brand new application security policy in enforce mode. What happens to unrecognized inbound traffic by default? How are you answering that? Take a second.
Did you guess it? It is strictly blocked. Remember, the default inbound posture is always an allowed list. It's that least privilege model again. If a category or subnet is not explicitly listed as allowed, it is automatically denied. There is no such thing as an explicit block list on an allowed list. You simply define what gets through, and the system blocks the rest.
Here is another incredibly sneaky exam trap straight from the Nutanix documentation. It's an edge case about policy hit logs. Normally, the system generates hit logs to tell you what rules are being triggered. But, and this is a big but, policy hit logs are not generated if both the source and the destination are in the inbound or outbound category. Memorize that. It's a highly technical exception, which makes it perfect for a confusing multiple-choice question.
All right, section 5, key facts to memorize. Let's bring it all home.
If you only take a screenshot of one thing today, make it this cheat sheet. 1. FNS is workload-centric. Policies target logical categories, never IP addresses. 2. The default inbound posture is always an allowed list. 3. Monitor mode visualizes everything but allows traffic to pass. 4. Enforce mode actually blocks the disallowed traffic. And 5. These modes are totally switchable. You can flip between monitor and enforce whenever you need to without breaking a sweat.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a step back and think about the big picture. If the entire philosophy of zero trust assumes that a breach inside your network is inevitable, how is your mastery of these specific microsegmentation modes going to stop a single compromised VM from burning down the entire data center? Because by truly understanding how to monitor, allow list, and enforce traffic using categories, you literally become that ultimate, unbreakable line of defense. Keep grinding, trust the architecture, and you're going to crush the NCP-MCI 7.5 exam.